to what extent is it reasonable and to what extent is it unreasonable for people to contact you on your personal number for work-related things? Where can we draw the line? What would HR then need to do? Well, how then do they come into the situation and play their role in trying to get some sort of resolution for Paul and his manager?
So HR will then receive the form, the grievance form. They will go through it, and then they are responsible for dealing with the grievance timelessly and also in a fair and in an impartial manner. So because now it will now be a formal process. So there will be a chairperson and there will be a grievance meeting. So in that meeting, there will be the chairperson, there'll be Paul, and there'll be his supervisor. The chairperson will hear both sides and will thereafter issue a finding. And that finding is final. But if the company's policy allows for an appeal process and Paul is not satisfied with the finding of the chairperson, then he can then appeal against the finding.
Okay, so let's talk about the chairperson, his impartiality, because sometimes that becomes a sticky one where as an employee, Paul now questions this guy. How do we guard against a chairperson who's not fair, who's not going to treat the situation fairly? What would need to happen? What would a chairperson need to be in terms of his profile, right? Because it can't be Paul. It can't be Paul's boss's friend.
No, definitely.
Because
not.
if they have lunch together every day and they are giving each other, they are on a lift club. How likely is it that this chairperson is going to be? So how do we then define what would a fair chairperson's profile look like?
So in order to avoid that, what most companies do is to get someone external. So again, it depends on the seniority of Paul. So if Paul is really senior and then he has his line manager who's also really senior, and there's no senior person above them who could be the chairperson, then what companies do is that they then get someone external, because that person is independent. So so that they can try to have someone who's fair and who's impartial,
who doesn't know the both of them. Okay, and then how do we guard against the chairperson having prior knowledge of it, right? Because obviously HR is going to say, hello, Mr. Chairperson, we need you to come into this matter. And then now we don't want a situation where Paul is saying, it seems like this decision was a fait accompli, which means they already knew the decision before I could even bring my story forward. How do we guard against that, where we're really making sure that this is a fair process?
So what happens is that when a chairperson is briefed, or when they are instructed to chair a grievance meeting, they are not given the whole story of what happened, because again, that will only come from HR side. So they are not told that, okay, this and this happened. So they're just instructed to chair a grievance meeting. And then when they then attend the grievance meeting, that's then where they hear the chairperson hears both sides. So they are not given information regarding the matter prior to the grievance meeting.
So that it doesn't seem like he's already made a decision in his head about what is going to happen.
Correct.
Right? Because also I think one would also think about a situation, because this chairperson would probably need to get paid, ne? And they would need to get paid by the employer, because the employee is definitely not going to pay for that. So those are the kind of things that we need to guard against. And I think what you've just explained is really important around making sure that the person doesn't come with an already made up mindset. He doesn't know what the set of facts are on the table. So I think that's really good. And I just want to take one step back. Like we talked about you saying that there are timelines that need to be met. So the company policy would have timelines to say, okay, now that you've brought in the matter to us as HR, you've got 7 working days to put forward the story, right? Your version of events.
Yeah.
What happens if a person misses that 7 days? Let's say you start this process, and then you fill out this form, and then you fill out the stuff, and then you're really going for it. But when you're asleep on your own, when you're on your own, in your own space, you really become overwhelmed because not everybody knows how to express themselves in, a lawyer type manner, in a manner that, let's say the company doesn't have representatives like unions and stuff like that. They don't have unions in that company. You are stressed out. Like you fall sick in that 7 days, you just can't get out of bed. You're feeling really, really anxious to a point where physically you are sick. Yeah. How strict are those timelines? What do you need to do if you miss those timelines for one reason or another? You miss the 7 days, right? Or the 5 days that they've put for you. What are there consequences to that? How can you fix it, or do you lose out if you don't do it within those days?
So it should really depend on what the company's policy says. But usually, I mean, if you are able to provide a reason and it's reasonable, a reasonable reason why you missed the deadlines, then you could be excused for doing so. So I wouldn't say that, yes, you're supposed to comply with the company's policies, but if there's really a genuine reason why you missed the timelines, then then HR or the relevant department dealing with the grievance could be understanding in that regard. Yeah.
Okay. So just one last question on this point is that I can imagine that as an employee, this thing it's making you very anxious.
Yeah.
Emotionally, you are a mess. Mentally, you are a mess. And you're still, by the way, expected to come to work and do your job, right? In between this process that's happening on the side, you still every day needing to come in and do this work, needing to come in and face this person, right? So you can imagine there's a lot of emotional things that happen there. What role does HR play in trying to also cater for the mental well-being of both the employee and the manager? Because maybe the manager wasn't even aware this is a problem. So he's also probably going through his own things. Like, how do we get through this part? You came for me. I didn't know this was an issue.
Yeah.
Now I look like the bad manager because you decided to bring this matter forward.
Yeah.
It's not good. The relationship between the two parties is very strained at this point in time. The mindset, you as an employee coming to work in this type of environment while this process is happening, how do we, bring sanity to the situation in terms of the mindset? What role does HR play to actually just bring some level of sanity to the situation?
So that's a difficult question. But just to think about Paul's situation. So the scenario in this case, right? So where you say that he works sometimes at home, sometimes he works at the office. So what HR could do perhaps in this situation is to maybe ask the supervisor if he can allow Paul to work at home while this process is still playing out, so that they don't have to see each other, or there doesn't have to be any interactions and any difficulties while this process is still playing out. So that could be a possible option, or they can discuss as to what possible solutions there can be while the process is still playing out.
And I'm also thinking maybe HR can suggest like the wellness program, the wellness people, if they have like a wellness program, maybe there's a wellness person who can come in, and then maybe Paul can have somebody that he can talk to, or the manager can also have somebody that he can also talk to, just to try and alleviate some of that, negative energy that's happening between the two of them, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Wow, that's brilliant. Yo, that was a lot.
It was a lot.
A lot.
It was a lot.
I think we've really learned a lot in this thing. I think we've really catered for the various scenarios. I just have one more question. You remember in the example we talked about the manager sending Paul a WhatsApp to micromanage him or to do something while he's away.
Yeah.
What are the rules, and I guess maybe let me call them rules, around your manager calling you and communicating with you on your personal WhatsApp? This is your personal phone, your personal WhatsApp. You're on leave, you're on sick leave, whatever. And he's like, I've sent you an email, deal with it. What are the rules around WhatsApps? Because I think that comes up a lot as well, where your manager... people want to put you, everybody wants to put you on a WhatsApp group on your personal phone. Dololo data, they don't provide you with any of that stuff, but they expect you to work.
Yeah.
To what extent is it reasonable, and to what extent is it unreasonable for people to contact you on your personal number for work-related things? Where can we draw the line?
So is this now in a situation where there's no work phone?
Yes.
Okay.
Paul is an admin guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't qualify for the benefit of a work phone. This is his personal number where they can get a hold of him.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that Paul must be ridiculous as well and not answer when he is being asked to answer certain things. But surely there has to be some level of reasonableness.
Yeah, like you said, it should be reasonable. So and you also said that Paul works from home. So if that is the only manner in which his manager can communicate with him, then I don't think that is unreasonable. Okay. But then it does become a problem if Paul says, no, I'm sick, and then he takes sick leave, and then his manager still contacts him and still sends him numerous messages on WhatsApp and requires him to do something about it. And so that could be found to be unreasonable. But as long as the communication is reasonable, there shouldn't really be a problem with it, especially if that is the only manner of communication.
Okay. I think that really makes sense to an extent. But they must buy people data.
Yes. Oh no.
Expect
definitely.
them to be
definitely
on their phones.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely. So that's why you have some companies who have so they provide their employees with such means. For example, they allow their employees to claim for the data that they used or the airtime that they bought. So there are cell phone policies which provide for such things.
Okay, so there should be those kind of policies that cater for those kind of situations, right? So I'm hoping that the employers are also taking note of what we're talking about here on Mamolao, because I think to an extent, sometimes it's really unfair for employees to have to use their own resources all the time to do work-related things, right?
Yeah.
So, just one more question, Sleep. When are we going to get to a point where, like other countries, we are getting to a point where you are allowed not to answer that WhatsApp after 5 p.m. knockoff time?
Sure.
When does the law evolve? When does the law cover employees?
Sure.
And employees is everybody. By the way, the CEO is an employee. The chief operations manager, those people are employees as well. At which point can they switch off as well? Because I'm reading now that in other countries, the law is now that you actually don't have to answer your email. In fact, it's now that company's policy that you don't have to answer the email when it comes in.
Yeah.
When do we get to that point?
I have no idea when we will get to that point. But I think really it depends on the operational requirements of the company. So, I mean, if you know that you work for a company that the work doesn't really stop. So, or also your position is such that, you don't stop, you don't really now switch off and say, okay, I'm done with the work is there and you are required to do it, then unfortunately you have to do it.
Okay,
Yeah. So to say that, no, I knock off at 5:00 and this is it, I'm done, I'm not working for the day. Perhaps some companies allow that, but then there are others where really the operational requirements are such that you need to be available, reasonably available when you're required to do some work.
So if it's not the law for now, then the employer can then try and cater for those situations in their policies.
Yes.
Right? To say this is what we do and we do not allow. This is what fair means.
No,
Et
definitely.
cetera, right? Depending on the level of seniority and stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That's all we have for this segment. Thank you for tuning in to Mamolao. Please don't forget to subscribe and click on the notification bell for more of this educational legal content. Make sure that you comment, guys. I want to hear from you. And also ask questions because I want to hear those too.